Zelensky says Russia can attack our cities, but it won't be able to break us. This as suicide drones hit Kyiv, Ukraine's capital.
Okay. Can you hear me, Shapiro?
Social media posts.
I can hear you, but the background is kind of loud.
Okay. Jewel, if you could bring that, Madam Board Operator, if you could bring that down.
Seemingly trying to shoot.
Bring Shapiro. Oh, the
Yeah, so she can hear me and I can hear her.
Over the past week have hit infrastructure.
Okay, you should be up because I hear it clicking.
Okay, you hear me?
A lot of hurt, a lot of trauma. That's what Stockton, California's mayor says about Wesley.
Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3.
Of 6 men over 3
Okay.
months.
Hear me?
Can
All
you
right,
hear?
we're good. Audio's good.
Thank you. Shapiro.
Thank you, Shapiro.
See you in a minute.
We got it.
All right, honey.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Of this
Bye-bye.
election is at stake. The AP's Jennifer King with what voters are telling us.
Poll respondent Graham Dean in Pennsylvania, who leans.
All right. No
Could you add a
issues this
minute
morning,
to me, please?
and we're good to go. 1 minute?
Uh-huh.
Sure.
Capital. Rick Moore in Las Vegas says it's important that Republicans control.
Thank you so
Congress,
much.
calling President Biden a puppet. Sean Hartledge, a stay-at-home mom in Ohio, voiced concern about inflation and a decline in moral values.
You'll get a little bit of a break at the gas pump this morning. The price of gas is down to $3.88 a gallon, says the AAA, down 3 cents in a week. That's according to the AAA. Thousands of protesters angry about rising prices filled the streets of Paris yesterday. Protesters included the country's newly crowned Nobel laureate in literature. This is AP News. If you're a sports fan, the AP's Ben Thomas.
Thank you
has
so
some
much.
story about the AP college football poll.
There's change atop the AP Top 25 college football poll as the Crimson Tide rolls out of the top 5. The AP poll starts out in familiar fashion: Georgia number 1, Ohio State number 2. But Tennessee has now moved into the number 3 slot after beating Alabama on a field goal as time expired Saturday. The Crimson Tide fall to number 6 out of the top 5 for the first time since 2019. Meantime, Michigan moved up to number 4 after blowing out Penn State, which falls to 16. Wolverines switched places with Clemson, now at 5 after a win over Florida State. Alabama was one of 5 unbeaten teams to fall during a wild weekend. Moving into the top 25, North Carolina at 22 and Tulane at 25. Tulane is for the first time since 1998.
And I need a follow AP.
All right. You got 1 minute added.
Okay,
Let
so
me
we
know
come in
if
at
you need
6:07?
more. Yeah, about. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
CPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, UWCPT 820 Chicago traffic update.
Monday boarding rush to O'Hare is on.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Let's have a great show.
190 going into the airport, especially heavy from the tri-state to Anaheim. There's still a shortage of congestion in the terminal area. Get from downtown Chicago to the airport, 25 minutes, inbound 19. The Eisenhower has building traffic around Des Plaines Avenue, 25 minutes, 390 to downtown. Down Stevenson, delay started Central, 30 minutes from the Veterans Memorial to Saba Lake Shore Drive. The ride is 14 minutes, 95th to downtown. In Foundation Port of Dalton Avenue, we have a report of a vehicle fire. And farther north, there's congestion. Cutting 11th, the Verge. Tollway traffic flows pretty well for now. That's traffic. I'm Alamonte.
The Rick Smith Show, live weeknights from 8 to 10 p.m.
What's amazing is how quickly Joe Biden has brought the world together.
The Rick Smith Show on WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk.
For years, the special interests got whatever they wanted in Washington, and Americans paid the price. That all changes right now because Congress just passed the Inflation Reduction Act, and President Biden signed it into law. Here's what that means for you. First, Medicare can now finally negotiate lower prices for prescription drugs. Drugs like insulin will cost a fraction of what they do today. The days of drug companies price gouging seniors are over. Second, it builds on the Affordable Care Act to lower healthcare premiums.
Hey, how much time do we have, Jewel? Excuse me, Madam Operator. I'm sorry. I don't mean to call your name.
You're fine. You could call my first name. I don't mind.
No, I don't want to call it.
That's fine too.
Okay, Justin.
You have about 2 minutes.
Okay. I don't want to call it because I don't want to make a mistake and call the whole name. Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Your name, so because I will make that error. I will copy
Chicago's
that.
Progressive Talk.
Okay.
Whatever helps you remember. All right.
Okay.
The best people to fight for our communities are those with.
All right. We have about 1 minute.
Thank you so much. All right. We'll have a great show. Praise the Lord. Amen. And
We're going to have a wonderful show. I could feel it today.
Mhm.
Take care of our families. This is real. Y'all need to take this serious.
Coronavirus took Jason's life 11 days after he recorded that message. Blacks are twice as likely to die from the virus. Until this fight is over, the least we can do is to do our part and stay home for those who can't. Together, we can help beat
20 seconds.
You must go out. Be sure to social distance and wear masks and gloves in public places. For the sake of our families, our friends, for fallen heroes like Jason.
Just keep the music playing because I'm downloading something right now. Thank you.
All right. We're about to go live.
Okay. Wonderful. Glad you're back, Madam Board Operator. Glad you're back. Okay. All right. Here we go.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. Hope you had a wonderful weekend. It's Monday, October 17th. 2022. Wow, wow, wow. Can you believe we're 2 decades into this new century and it's almost 2023, almost 2024 again. Unbelievable. I'm Santita Jackson. It's a joy to be with you today. Getting a little bit of an echo. We're going to work that out right now. Well, let's talk about this Warnock-Walker debate. What's happening in Georgia? And what is the difference between 2018 and 2022? 2018, Stacey Abrams she and Brian Kemp were 1 point apart. Now it's a 5 to 10 point spread. What's going on in that race? But did you see the debate? Are you going to watch Stacey Abrams debate Brian Kemp tonight? She's one of the best debaters I've ever seen in my life. I cannot wait to see this. I'm going to get my popcorn and my Raisinets. It's going to be great. It's going to be something else. And so many people say Georgia holds the keys to the kingdom for the Democrats. What do you think, everybody? And what's really the issue that is going to drive you to vote in these midterms? I want you to call me now at 773-763-9278. 773-763-9278. Let me know. Is it the economy? Is it abortion? Is it democracy, the fight for democracy? What is it? I mean, is it going to the grocery store? Talk to me, everybody. I'm Santita Jackson coming to you from WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's a joy to be with you today. And I see you were up there first, Andre, my god brother, and Daryl Prunty, and Brian Martin, and Salam. How you doing? Allah, alternate channel. I love it. And Jewel, how you doing? And Mark, and Lamont, and so many of you, and Facebook user, and Joyce, sending you all much love today. What is going to be the driver in this election? Will it be the economy? Will it be abortion? Will it be LGBTQ plus issues? What will it be? What's really got you pumped up in 2022? Call me at 773-763-9278 on Monday, October 17th, 2022. Let's get some of these headlines out the way. It is now autumn and we're moving into winter, everybody. I was reading one forecast that said we might even have snow showers in Chicago, but so far they're saying we're going to have a high of 43 degrees and scattered showers. What kind? I don't know, but it's going to freeze today. In Minneapolis, St. Paul, 37 degrees, partly cloudy. In the NFL, 24 Vikings. The Dolphins 16. Bears, well, got a little bit of a reprieve, everybody. In Major League Baseball, who's going to the World Series? Well, we don't know. The Yankees 4, the Guardians 2. The Yankees face off against the Guardians again tonight. The Padres won their series, however. 5-3 over the Dodgers. They won their series 3-1. October 18th, everybody. What day is that? Oh, the NBA season begins. I love it. As we look at the midterms, we're barely 3 weeks away. Remember this, white voters are the most likely in America to vote. 2/3 of American voters will vote. It is projected in the 2022 midterms. White voters are most likely to vote, with 72% saying that they'll go to the polls versus 57% of black voters, 49% of Hispanic voters, and 54% of voters from other racial and ethnic backgrounds. Everybody get out and vote. Go to vote.org and make sure that you have not been purged from the rolls so that you can do something about this. And we're going to be bringing Daryl Jones and attorney Barbara Arnwine, both of them attorneys, on to take us through a voter clinic, because you're going to have 50,000, according to the GOP, monitors out here checking to see how you vote. We're going to have some intimidation at the polls. What do you do if you're faced with that? What do you do if you get to the polls and find out that you've been purged? What do you do? We're going to be talking about that on the Santita Jackson Show. A quarter of Americans are expecting to delay their retirement due to rising consumer costs, according to this new study from the American Advisors Group. They found that more than 1/3 of Americans today feel unprepared or are unsure if they are on track for retirement. Nearly 1/3 of seniors say they either plan to work through the age of 70 or never retire at all. Is that you? Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. In the meantime, U.S. Senate Budget Committee Chair Bernie Sanders is urging Democrats, begging Democrats who are running for office, to focus more on economic issues on the campaign trail. He said, I think they should contrast their views with the Republican positions. I believe, and most Democrats believe, that at a time when half of our people are living paycheck to paycheck, we should raise the minimum wage to a living wage. No Republicans support that. I think we should make it easier for workers to join unions. No Republicans support that. I believe that when you have billionaires not paying a nickel in some cases in federal income taxes, we should demand that the rich and large corporations start paying their fair share. Do you think that that's the argument that Democrats ought to be making? I do. Call me at 773-763-9278. We'll be looking at this Herschel Walker, Raphael Warnock debate from Friday, but they also had another one last night, and Herschel Walker did not show up. Indeed, Raphael Warnock said that shows that he can't be trusted, and it also shows that he's not ready. What do you think? And some people are saying that the debate that Senator Warnock had last night is the debate he should have had on Friday. What do you think, everybody? For the first time, adults in the United States will be able to buy over-the-counter hearing aids beginning today instead of getting a prescription and having to wait for a custom fitting. Air raid sirens rang out in Ukraine today as Russia attacked Kiev with a kamikaze drone, or kamikaze drones, according to Ukrainian officials. President Joe Biden said on Saturday the video and testimony shared at last week's January 6th hearing was devastating, and said the committee overall has made an overwhelming case. More than 600 people have been killed in the worst flooding Nigeria has seen in a decade, the country's humanitarian affairs minister said in a statement yesterday. According to the ministry, more than 2 million people have been affected by flooding that has spread across parts of the country south after a particularly wet, rainy season. More than 200,000 homes have been destroyed or partially damaged, according to the ministry. And those are some of the headlines on the Santita Jackson Show. Well, you know what? I have some good news for you today. And you know what I'm going to tell you? The good news is that you are here. That's right. Rise and shine and give God your glory, glory. That's a song that I used to sing in Sunday school along with so many of us at Fellowship Missionary Baptist Church, Cosmopolitan Community Church, New Covenant, and on and on. First Church of Deliverance. I can just go on and on and on and on. But rise and shine and give God your glory, glory, because God has given God's glory, glory to you by letting you see another day above ground. So get up, everybody, and give this day that the Lord has made for you. Give it your best shot. Today is a gift. My father often tells me, well, he only had to tell me once, but I've heard it. It's become a running joke with us. He said, you know what? If you don't like birthdays, try missing one. And if you don't like life, try missing a day. If you miss a day, you miss a lot because you're out of here. So everybody, remember the good news for you today is that you are still here. Not that I've seen anybody go to the other side and want to come back, but that having been said, you are on assignment here. You're on assignment. And while you are on assignment, do your work. And what is your work? To be the best person you can be, to get the best out, to get the most out of this day that you can get. That's why you're still here. God's giving you the best that God has for you. So now you give the best right back. And give today your best shot. Be the best person you can possibly be. Continue to move toward the mark. God's not through with you yet. That's why you're still here. So I want you to rise and shine today. Be the best person you can be. Continue to move forward. Give God your glory. Give God your glory. Everybody get ready. Get ready. There's something called life coming your way. It's right here. And I want you to make the best of today because it's a gift to you. Now, give God a gift and you be the best you can be. And for those people who are not of faith, you know what? If you look at the universe or if you just feel that you are here, just know that you're here for a reason. And the reason is good. And the reason is great. And you are great. And I want you to get out here and do everything you can to make yourself and to make the world a better place. And that's the good news for today. Everybody, we've got Dr. Shanina Knighton with us, and we're always so grateful to have her as we talk about Flu-rena. I have laughed about that all weekend, although it's not funny. It's just, I said, people come up with more stuff on this, the combination of the flu and coronavirus, Florona. Everybody, please take care of yourself because, one of the things that I have noticed, Dr. Shanina Knighton, who is a registered nurse, PhD, infection preventionist, and she's a scientist, a research scientist, so brilliant. And we're so honored to have her every day, the executive director of the Association for Professionals in Infection and Control Epidemiology Center. Indeed, it's the largest gathering of these esteemed scientists in the world. She is with us every day, helping us to understand how we can make it through this pandemic and the flu season and on and on and on. And you know what I'm hearing, Dr. Knighton? I'm hearing something that I did not hear at the beginning of the pandemic. And I'm glad to hear it. I just find it a little interesting. Now, when they do health segments, they open and close often with the importance of hand washing, the importance of hand hygiene. They didn't tell us that 2-3 years ago, but we're hearing that now. If you would, explain to me why hand washing is so important. Explain to all of us why it's so important.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So hand hygiene, period. And I'm saying that just in case if someone doesn't have access to soap or water, or there's a misconception that hand sanitizer don't work because hand sanitizers do work. Hand hygiene is important because we're the only species that use our hands for absolutely everything that we do. So we eat with our hands, we engage with others with our hands. Absolutely everything that we do, our way of living is associated with using our hands. with that being said, it's very important to understand that as we encounter germs and think about our environment, the things that we'll come in contact with, the same way that we continue to grow, the same way and evolve, the same way germs continue to evolve as well. And sometimes those may not necessarily be favorable for our system. What happens is we can't do not think about the importance of staying out of reach of those germs by way of our hands. The other thing is, Santita, is we come in contact with surfaces that others come in contact with, and while their germs may be sufficient for them, or I would say safe for them, they may not necessarily be safe for someone else. We also, our body has defense mechanisms such as sneezing, such as coughing, that releases germs that are not necessarily always friendly. So being able to clean your hands means that you are decreasing your chance of coming in contact with if they're talking about environmental things, because again, food can contain bacteria, it can contain germs, all of that. And so, for example, with raw meat, if you're not cleaning your hands when handling raw meat, then you're likely to get some sort of foodborne illness. And we tend to not think about the importance of that. But just something as simple as that alone can make somebody sick if they're not cleaning their hands. So there's multiple reasons of why we should do it. The first and foremost thing is making sure that some of those germs that could end up harming the inside of our bodies doesn't. And that's just by making sure that we're doing what we're supposed to do in regards to keeping our hands clean. Now, it sounds so simple, however, it must be noted that literally not a lot of people clean their hands correctly. And when I say they don't clean their hands correctly, meaning people can put their hands up under soap and water, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're washing them for the correct duration, that they're using friction, that they're doing everything that they need to do to ensure that they're clean. And these are important steps that must be taken in order for someone to ensure their safety.
Call us at 773-763-9278. Do you know that you need to get under your fingernails? Do you know you need to clean the webs between your fingers? Do you know how to wash your hands? Do you know how important that is? And why do you think it's becoming an issue now? Why do you think that people are now discussing the importance of hand hygiene, or at least they say at least hand washing? Why do you think that that is being discussed now as opposed to then, 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
I think it's always been discussed. I think it's just like with anything else, that when something tends to be threatening, then it's put on our radar much more now than it is before. And when I'm saying much more on our radar, I mean it hasn't gone away. Nothing's changed about it. It's just that our awareness of it changes, because now it's okay. We're coming out of a pandemic. People are starting to have an awareness that they must keep themselves safe. And when you have an awareness that you must keep yourself safe, you're thinking about those behaviors and those attitudes. For example, Santita, I was out yesterday at the store. I had to go to the store to go get some hair care products. And let's just say I was in there, and it was a diverse store. But I was disturbed because this lady came in there talking about, I don't know why my allergies are acting up. But she comes in there literally with a runny nose. So she tells the lady she don't want any service because her nose is running. And she's like, I know that it's my allergies. But she's walking around with a tissue in her hand because she's constantly wiping her nose. And like literally I'm sitting there watching her look at products, right? And you can only imagine the products that she's going to touch. And then she's got to go to the register. She's not going to clean her hands. And then the fact that a cashier or someone else has to come in contact with her contaminated hands. So the thing is, it's like now we're at a place where people are becoming more and more aware of it. And they're becoming aware of when people don't do it. Meaning if you are behind the counter and you're getting your food prepared and your person that's doing your food prep is messing around with their cell phone or they're messing around with their hair, but they're getting ready to put their hands on your wrap or your sandwich, it's like at that time, do you speak up or you just don't essentially eat their germs? And So it's that kind of awareness to me of people just being aware of what they're doing with their hands, which is just as important as them washing their hands. So I tend to make sure that I'm conscious of that when people are doing certain things. I watch somebody wipe their nose and then try to hand me a menu, and I'm like, I don't want that because you just wiped your nose. So I'll let people know what it is that they do because we're not mindful of our activities and we're not mindful of how those activities may impact someone else.
We're talking with Dr. Shanina Knighton about really essentially infection prevention. Infection prevention, that is her specialty. There are only a few thousand.
Santita?
Yes, ma'am.
I also wanted to point out that this week is International Infection Prevention Week. So essentially that means that internationally everywhere we are celebrating infection prevention. So it is an international week to acknowledge the work that is being done in infection prevention and control.
Are you trying to control it or prevent it?
Both.
Okay.
Because some things, for example, just the same way that there are animal-borne illnesses, and then sometimes the animal-borne illnesses end up converting over to humans. Some things, as much as we would try to prevent it, we're all moving pieces and parts within a large ecosystem. And so essentially it's possible to prevent certain things, but we can't control it once we become aware of it.
Dr. Knighton, we're in this. I went to get a sandwich yesterday, and on my way from work, I work all the time, and no one who was making the sandwiches, no one was masked. What do you do in that situation?
Decide whether or not you're going to eat there. But I think the most important thing is like being aware of that when you go in. So when I go into an environment, I literally spend about 5 minutes there to even see if it's somewhere where I even want to eat. Because a lot of the times you'll actually find that if they're in the midst of making your food, but you are already skeptical about whether or not you wanted to stay, it ends up doing more harm than good when you could just make a decision not to stay. So, for example, my kids and I maybe last week went inside of a restaurant and the restaurant didn't smell pleasant. And we were trying to figure out, like, okay, is it just, maybe we in an area, or walked in and, there was a stench. We just made it there and just decided. We sat down. They had brought us our waters. They brought us our menus. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm feeling like eating here. I don't like the smell. My kids looked at me and they said, Mommy, I don't like it either. Let's go. That's not anybody holding us to, like, having to do it. Like, we have rights. And I know that sometimes having rights can get in the way of what may necessarily seem as though it's rude. But we also have to have an awareness that it's actually, am I going to practice prevention and keep myself safe because I want to stay safe? Or do I really care? Am I worried too much about what someone else may think at the risk of my own safety or at the cost of my own safety?
That really is the key. Because I'm surprised that there are no breaks, no safeguards for people who prepare your food. I mean, that to me is people who prepare and serve your food. And the rules are so haphazard. There are no rules. They're guidelines. And so with guidelines, people do one thing over here and one thing over there. And it gets to be very confusing. And I don't feel as safe. But, look, I'm not there yet, but my grandmother, God rest her soul, she worked in the hospital, in the VA. She's the person who would serve you your food. My grandmother, Mrs. Gertrude Brown. And she was like a germophobe. She didn't eat out. She thought people were nasty, but she was very, very aware of germs and how they're spread. Dr. Shanina Knighton helping us with infection prevention. And tomorrow, just kind of walk us through what infection preventionists want us to know, and more than that, what you want us to do. Brilliant Dr. Shanina Knighton, Executive Director of APIC's new Center for IPC Research, Practice, and Convention. Infection prevention research, everybody, not just to control it, but to prevent it. You can do it. Call me at 773-763-9278. Who you got in the midterms? And more than that, what is the driving issue? Is it the economy or is it abortion? Call me, 773-763-9278. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a few minutes. Dr. Knighton, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Oh, honey, I'm doing fine. We're going to have to let you go because it turns out I'm now understanding that I have very limited lines.
Okay. Well, no, not a problem. I'll let
But you know what?
Facebook.
Hold it. I'm going to send you this story that we can talk about next week about these maternity care deserts. Have you heard about? Well, of course you have. You heard. I'm new. There are places where they said a new study released last week reveals that more than a third of U.S. counties are now considered maternity care deserts. Let me see. They don't have practicing obstetricians, midwives, hospitals, birth centers. That's a third of America's counties. And I need to talk with you. We need to talk about that, Dr. Knighton.
Sounds good.
That is, I'll send you the story. It is frightening. But when you look at maternal mortality in the United States, there it is. We're not caring for pregnant women. So this whole back and forth about, oh my God, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, it's awful. You know, about being pro-life. I'm like, you're not pro-life.
No, absolutely.
You know, you're not pro-life at all. So definitely, you know, let me know.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you, sweetie.
You're welcome. I'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. How's your great nephew?
He's doing okay.
Okay. All right. Just checking.
Thank you for asking.
No, honey, it's something I think about all the time when I think of you. It's just a lot. You know.
Yeah, trust me, his little self FaceTiming us every day.
Oh, bless his heart. But God bless you.
Thank you, and God bless you too.
Thank you, sweetie.
You too.
All right, sending you much love, honey.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Hey, you all, call me at 773-763-9278. Let me know what the big issue, you know, Bernie Sanders has said, look, Democrats, you're missing the boat on this. Do not sleep on the economy. And it's not that these other issues are not important, but you know what? At the end of the day, when people go to the gas pump, it's not a little bit more than $3 a gallon. Not where I live. I live in the Black community. It's, you know, it's a mixed community. That having been said, it is $2 and $3 above that where I live. Okay. What about, and abortion is important, reproductive rights and autonomy. That's important. But increasingly, and the Republicans, they've been doing their polling. They swing for the fences, everybody. They are looking at the economy and they're looking at crime.
We have 1 minute.
Thank you. Now, who do we have?
We have everyone except for Attorney Jones still working on it.
Okay, no worries. So we have Patillo. We have, okay, just let me know who we have. We have Patillo.
Patillo, Connolly, Miss Wells, and Hoffler.
Okay. All right. Great. You all, I'm going to have to shuffle things around. Aaron, I'm going to keep you for this segment, so I'm going to give you the lion's share of the talking points on this segment, because it turns out I'm not in studio, so I didn't know we don't have a lot of lines. So when people are saying that they're trying to call in, they can't. Would it be possible for you to call back in, say at like 7:40?
You have 15 seconds.
Need to call back?
No. Stay right there. But I can keep you up until 6:58, but I want you back at 7:40. I'm having to juggle the calls.
Stand
okay?
by. We're about to go
I
live.
got it. Sure. Okay. Thanks so much. Thank you so much, Madam Board Operator. Okay.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I
Hey, everybody, let's talk about the Raphael Warnock, Senator Warnock and Herschel Walker. They faced off on Friday night, and everyone was expecting a showdown, and they got that. And they got surprises, too. They got a Herschel Walker who did not stumble, which, given the lower bar of expectations for him, that made him a winner. Given the fact that Reverend Dr. Raphael Warnock has inherited the pulpit, he has earned it. But he is in the pulpit of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. He's a brilliant preacher, brilliant orator, brilliant thinker, brilliant. People expected him to have the debate on Friday night that he had last night when Herschel Walker was not there. So we got a lot to talk about. And you'd be surprised at Black people who are giving him a chance, who are giving Herschel Walker a chance. I was watching the news this morning, and some people were on these HBCU campuses down in Atlanta. You know, Atlanta's famed for the whole AU, Spelman, Morehouse, Clark, on and on, AU, all of that, on and on and on and on. And Herschel Walker is not some hated figure in many quarters. So I want to know what you think. What do you think? Call me at 773-763-9278. What did you see on Friday night? What did you see last night? I want to know what your thoughts are. But first, Chaparral, Celebrations by Us. What's going on today?
Good morning, Santita, and thank you so much for having me. Yes, our Celebrations by Us, we are your one-stop party connection. And right now we're gearing up for the holiday season, so we're starting to take orders for Thanksgiving, as well as also all of your birthday parties, your baby showers, as well as also your weddings. We're still doing weddings. We have some fall ones. So give us a call at 708-526-4546. 708-526-4546. We can not only handle your catering needs, but we can also do all of your full decor. That includes balloon arches, custom suite tables, as well as also floral arrangements. So call us at 708-526-4546. We look forward to serving you. Thank you so much, Santita.
Now, of course, everybody, call me at 773-763-9278. I want to know what your thoughts are with respect to the Warnock-Walker debate. Walker did not stumble. He looked to be sharper than we thought he would be. But of course, the bar is very, very low for him. But that having been said, he met it. And so you got to admit that. What about the dynamism that we saw from Senator Warnock last night? One wishes that he had landed those punches in the presence of his opponent. But, different calculations have been made, and we just want to know what your thoughts are. Because everything matters at this time. So we, of course, have attorney C.K. Hoffler, chair of the board of Rainbow Push, legal analyst on Court TV, past president of the National Bar Association, the largest and oldest Black bar association in the world. We have attorney Robert Patillo rolling off of his fantastic show on WAOK. And of course, CK's on WAOK too, every Tuesday at 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. She's here every Wednesday at 7 a.m. Central Standard Time. But of course, he's on from 1 to 4 every Sunday. And boy, oh boy, they get things turned up on his show on WAOK. He's the Southeastern Regional Director for Rainbow Push. But let me start with you, Attorney Aaron Connolly. You're going to be with us for a little while, then you're going to come back in another segment. What about this debate? And what about the debate last night where Herschel Walker wasn't present? I mean, Senator Warnock said that means that he can't be trusted. It means that he's not ready. Well, your assessment of all of this.
Well, I think that assessment by Senator Warnock of Herschel Walker not showing up for the second debate is an accurate assessment, right? The Senate is in session more than one day a year. This is a full-time, hard job where you have to answer questions not only from your constituents and the public, but journalists. And the fact that he was able to perform well on Friday, I think says a lot about where our expectations are in this political game that we're watching this midterm season. But also, I think he kind of just ran out of talking points, right?
Wait a minute. What about running out of gas? Wait a minute. I got through Friday night. Whew, yes.
Exactly. Exactly. And, you know, we've all been through this debate prep process with candidates, or, you know, we've seen it play out in theatrical ways when we're recapping elections. It is a tough thing to prepare for a debate, but you have enough time. If you only have one, that's oftentimes we see candidates be able to put all of their pieces together and come out with a few knockout punches. And let's be clear here, Herschel Walker's performance in the first debate was not great. His answers were all over the place. His policies were dangerous. The fact that he was able to present himself in a way that, as you said, did not fumble the ball completely, but I don't think he got any touchdowns either, right? If we're using his football analogy here, he was okay. He didn't fail spectacularly the way that many in corporate media had expected him. And I think we have to give folks more credit. This guy has been running for the Senate for quite a while. He has some talking points. He has some preparation. Doesn't mean he is qualified and the best person to be the senator from the state of Georgia. And what we saw with Reverend Raphael Warnock, his policies were consistent with his messaging. He was able to debate Herschel Walker. I thought he did a good job. I think his performance to an empty podium was more refined and more just more energetic and focused on the core of his message. The way that he was able to land those punches, as you said, and come out really, really focused and strong. It was a little disappointing to not see that on Friday. But the reality is, this is more than one fight. You have to be able to show up more than once. And whether it's Herschel Walker or Greg Abbott or Marco Rubio, we see these guys running from a second show because they don't have anything else to say. And that's a dangerous precedent where we allow somebody to come on stage once, answer a few questions, barely meet expectations, and say that this is all we deserve as voters. That's not good enough anymore.
Well, wait a minute, barely meet our expectations. For the people who support him, who feel he's beleaguered, they feel that he's done enough. Now, next. I mean, I don't know. I mean, Robert Patillo, before I go to you, CK, and the callers, what do you say?
Well, it's interesting because me and Raphael Warnock come from kind of the same tradition of debate in the Atlanta University Center, him being a Morehouse man and me being from Clark, Atlanta. So the way that we teach debate there is a very Oxford-style 1960s debate. You know your facts, you know your analysis, and then when there's the smartest, most factually accurate person who can, just from the top of their head, garner the most facts. And I was critical of Warnock on Friday for being very seemingly aloof, for very much seeming cagey when it came to answers, and almost seemed like he didn't want to be there. That was much of the feedback that we got. That was my analysis of the debate until Saturday, because, you know, I had that debate in D.C. with some black Republicans, and it was a very similar dynamic where I'm doing the AUC style of debating that Warnock is also a part of the tradition of. And they're doing very much this Herschel Walker style of debating where facts aren't really necessary, where coherent policy is not necessary or even aimed for. It's mainly kind of this homespun, know-nothing type of I'm just a country lawyer with a couple zingers and a couple lines.
And personal attacks. Really haven't you noticed?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was just going to get to. Personal attacks, these homespun lines, more of a demagoguery, more appealing to the crowd than actually trying to academically win a debate. And I didn't realize how frustrating that was until I had to do the same thing Saturday versus it's almost like you release a wild animal into an academic setting because they're not playing by any of the rules. They're not actually answering any of the questions. So it only took me about 3/4 of the way through before I cut somebody clean out. So I understand to that point how difficult it was for Pastor Warnock in this setting, because you are sitting here presenting actual policy, actual cohesive points, and this other person is like, well, that ain't how I did my beans ain't frying in the kitchen. And it gets exceedingly frustrating. So I understand the difficulty of that and why on Sunday Pastor Warnock was able to do a far better job, because he was able to actually have a coherent conversation. He was actually able to shine, because in that short format that they had on Friday, raise your hand if you'll do X, Y, Z. In 30 seconds, explain how you'll achieve peace in the Middle East. That type of format really does play itself to demagoguery, to these kind of points that there are the applause lines, that you can memorize a 30-second applause line but don't have to dive any deeper. More so than even Percy Walker pulling out the little plastic toy badge. The most troubling answers he had kind of went to no one really noticed. On his answer on healthcare, this is almost a verbatim answer. He says, the business need the healthcare because people need the healthcare. And I want to have the healthcare the Warnock has, because Warnock got government healthcare and the good healthcare. Because what I want to do is not have you dependent on the government. I want you to be free. Now, that's not an answer on healthcare. That is just a random collection of words. On the question of insulin prices, Raphael Warnock's been campaigning on capping the price of insulin at $35 a month. People who are diabetic understand how important this is. Herschel Walker's answer on the question of insulin prices was, well, all you really need to do is eat right. Because he has no understanding of how these things work. Mm-hmm. And so when you're from this academic tradition of debating as Warnock is, as I've come from, and then somebody was talking like that, like I said, it ain't take me but 45 minutes to cut somebody clean out. So I understand the difficulty of what happened on Friday, kind of getting caught off guard when it comes to these discussions. And I think this is why Warnock somewhat came off seeming aloof, as if, why am I here? How is this something that I have to do? And it takes you a few minutes to get over that shock and awe. And I think he's back on his warnings now. And I also think he played it far too safe on Friday. He did not want to. It's almost like the Atlanta sports analogy. This is what we do here. If we get up, if we have a lead, whether it's the Falcons, the Braves, the Hawks, we start getting safe. We start sitting on the lead. I think that's very much what it looked like Warnock was doing on Friday. You don't want to say anything that will scare off people by saying, well, I'm going to support Joe Biden. You don't want to scare off anybody by getting too deep into the personal and family issues, which, of course, are an issue because Herschel Walker's campaign very much is based off of his lack of family values and not wanting to answer those questions. So whereas you don't want to say anything to scare anybody off, you also come off in such a way that it seems as if you're not being fully candid with the truth when it comes to people. So I think the second debate performance was better, but because of the nature of the internet, most of the things that are going viral are Herschel Walker pulling up the plastic badge and his lack of the ability to answer some of these policy issues. But as Aaron made the point, Herschel Walker set the expectations so low. As long as he didn't get up there and start drooling or fall over, or just hulk out and grab some woman and run off into the night, I think people will consider that a victory.
Victory, CK, before we go to the callers. I thought about you the whole time. I watched the recording. I said, oh, I hope my girl doesn't get the vapors, Aaron, because Robert, she can't take this.
Well, so I didn't see all this victory myself. What I saw was, of course, the expectation was very low. The expectation was as low as, does he know that subject and verbs should agree when speaking? It was just that low. But he didn't need for subject and verbs to agree, nor do any politicians need for subject and verbs to agree to win. But I don't think that he was victorious. I think that he did better than expected, than most people expected. But I think it was just about what I thought it was going to be. Herschel Walker was there for a junkyard street fight, and he came out, fighting in the street because he was speaking in street vernacular. He was not speaking in political vernacular. Mm-hmm. He was not speaking in senatorial vernacular. He was speaking in street vernacular because they wisely made a determination he needs to get some black folks to vote for him. And so he was speaking more to that. He wasn't speaking to, issues and all that, because we this goes to qualifications. We don't even need to waste time on that. He's all over the place. He's inconsistent. He doesn't have the temperament. But what he was doing was speaking to a demographic which theoretically he may not be able to reach, because Raphael Warnock has been dominant with that demographic. But he came out like, in my impression, maybe I have football on the mind too much, like a football player. That's not a bad thing, given that football is a religion, especially in states like Georgia. So I didn't see all this victory, but I did see a street fight, which is what
But
I
CK,
thought
isn't that what politics is? I mean, I've seen Reverend, I remember when Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr., when he was a candidate, and he was this upstart, he was Jesse Jackson Jr. What else? Why is he here? Honey, after the first debate, he shut it down and people started jumping out the race because this brother came there so prepared. Because what they did not know about him was that he was ready for a street fight. Didn't mean that he used street vernacular, but in politics, it's optics, right? I mean, the sad thing is the bar was set so low for this man that's all he had to do was crawl into the room, and people were like, "Yeah, he's done a great job." I'm just telling you from some people that I heard, I was like, "Oh, okay." Then I had to go back and look at it again. I said, "Okay, he cleaned up."
I looked at it several times. Yeah, I looked at it several times, and I respectfully disagree with anyone saying he did a great job.
Oh, I don't think he did a great job.
No, what he did is he did the basics. He showed up for a street fight, and he began fighting much like he would fight on a football field. Mm-hmm. Nothing wrong with that. Mm-hmm. That's his lane. That's what he knows. But again, it reinforced to me and to many, because there are always two sides to every coin.
Sure.
That he does not have the temperament. He does have the temperament to be a marionette, to be a puppet, to be led, to be a pawn. But he doesn't have what is required to be U.S. Senator. And I think that Raphael Warnock was very cautious, just like if you remember his debate of his previously, her name is escaping me, but she was a very, very, very wealthy white woman from Georgia, well-entrenched billionaire.
Mm-hmm. The WNBA owner.
One thing One thing that he was very, very sensitive to, was not being condescending, being very sensitive to the gender issue, and maintaining his cool, although she was going low and trying to get him in that zone. Similarly, he was taking the upper road and in some instances, I think at the first debate with Herschel Walker, because he was, this is what I believe, he likely was very sensitive to the perception that he didn't want it to ever appear, because he would have lost big points by this, that he was looking down on him because he wasn't, of course, of the profile or whatever that we expected. And so I think there was concern about that. And I think things like that dominated perhaps Senator Raphael Warnock's performance. I'm not making any excuses, because I think that Senator Raphael Warnock won that debate. So I'm not making excuses. It's just he pivoted in a different way in the subsequent debate, because he showed the diversity, which is what you have to do when you are a U.S. Senator. So I think that was his judgment call that he made on the first debate. And yeah, there was a certain amount of, this is just the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. I'm sitting up here with this fool. But when you're in politics, you have to sit up there.
You do. I mean, I'm sorry. That doesn't work, because the thing is, CK, let me pivot to Jim. Just stay right there. Jim from Chicago, because Jim has been holding since I asked for callers. Jim, at least I'll be able to get you in. Jim, what's on your mind?
I agree with both of your guests, CK and your other guests. They're eloquently describing this debate. They're absolutely right. Warnock doesn't want to get too heavy-handed. Of course, Democrats don't want to get too heavy-handed across the board. They've been, I think they'd be more heavily criticized if they do get more heavy-handed. But I'm just hoping that I think Warnock's got a slight lead, and I think that CK's right. And you don't want to go. You don't want to drop it completely down. But I'm worried about the voter suppression in Georgia. Georgia's such a strange state. And I just hope that everybody gets a true vote there. But I agree with both of your guests this morning. Thank you for taking my call.
No, thank you, Jim.
Thank
I mean, so who do you think is going to win? Let me ask you. Jim, you there? Well, I think he just might have told us something. I mean,
He dropped it.
Well, no, that's all right. Let me ask you, Aaron. So, what do you think? I mean, because you are one of these people you're one of these political consultants. You prep people for debates, and and I've been in debate prep, and you have to walk a line, but you also, I remember, one of the best singing coaches I've had has been my father, CK, Robert, and attorney Connolly. All of you are attorneys. And he has always cautioned me about being able to switch vernaculars, particularly as a Black singer, because Black folks cover the waterfront. I mean, there's some churches where they go in one direction, other churches, they go in another direction. I've had to sing, I've performed, for the President of the United States more than once. And that's another audience. And you have to know what the audience is so you know which song to sing and how to sing it. But, there comes a time when you have to, as he has said, you got to shift gears. No one said you need to go low, but you need to shift gears so people can know that you are present and what you can do, Attorney Connolly. And I don't want him to, because I don't want him to miss any opportunity, because politics is about optics. People don't care about who's qualified. Qualifications, take that off the table right now. Ain't nobody thinking about that at all. They're thinking about that seat, and whoever they can put in the seat, they'll put Charlie Bergen and his dummy in the seat. They don't care. Well, Aaron Connolly, I've got 2 minutes before we go to break.
Well, I think what we saw in Mr. Walker's case was his team prepared him to be himself, right? Oh. He had one note. He was able to shift into attack mode, in distraction mode, into not answering the question, into creating the same type of chaos that he has been creating with his candidacy. And he didn't have to answer a lot of those tough questions. The ones that Robert brought up, particularly about healthcare, about how diabetes works, I think were particularly illuminating and insulting to an audience that really understands how important healthcare is in this country and has a higher rate of diabetes than the national average. So I think saying things like that can be real touch points for folks that are caring about complex medical issues, that are really engaged in this race. And I think what will have to happen as we look through GOTB is opportunities for journalists to ask more of those tough questions instead of letting him run with the rhetoric that works for him. And that's the responsibility of the corporate media, and we have to do a better job of that. I think there is an opportunity to create those real touch points that show the differences in policy and not just persona.
If that's what they want to do, the media can make you or break you, CK. And Robert Patillo and Attorney Aaron Connolly. They can make you or break you. And the fact that they did not go in on this man indicates something to me. Now, you can call it paranoia. I call it hypervigilance. Because there's so much they could have drilled down on. They refused to do it on Friday night. They refused to do it. So now we're talking about how Senator Warnock underperformed and how he overperformed. I mean, really? The qualifications of these two candidates is not what we're debating here at all. Take that off the table. This is politics. Politics is pure and simple a street fight, everybody. It's a street fight. And if you are not a grown, thick-skinned, tough person, don't even get in this game. There are no friends in it. There's no love in it. It's about power, pure and simple. Next. All these qualifications and how erudite you are and learned and educated, nobody cares about that. They care about how you come off. And look at the corporate media who are giving this man all of this protection. Herschel Walker, it's amazing. You need to be asking those questions. Really. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show. Call me at 773-763-9278. Let's talk about the Warnock Walker race and what's going on with Stacey Abrams. Why is she 5 to 10 points behind? She and Brian Kemp were neck and neck 4 years ago. Oh, back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a few minutes. Aaron, we'll pick you back up at 7:40. CK and Robert, because you all are down there. So what are you hearing, CK? We're on Facebook Live now, remember.
Well, in terms of Stacey Abrams or in terms of Raphael Warnock?
Girl, you know I'm stuck on Raphael Warnock. I'm so clamped about that.
Warnock, I think people are a little bit, they're unnerved that it's this close, but the forces have coalesced to stand behind them. So what I'm hearing in the street and what I'm hearing with the social justice, the voting rights organizations and the like, they are really going in high gear. The commercials that we're seeing now in this last bit, they're timing it well, are even more piercing as it relates to Herschel Walker. But they're also more piercing as they relate to Raphael Warnock, a very disturbing commercial that came out. We know that Raphael Warnock was going through a divorce prior to him running left.
And we saw his soon-to-be ex-wife. I don't know if they're divorced now, but we saw her on television accusing him of some kind of misbehavior.
It's my understanding they're divorced. And she accused him of that misbehavior before he started running. So this is not new news. But it's an attempt to level the playing field relative to the allegations against Herschel Walker. And as you know, in the eyes of some, all you need is just a little bit of information. People are like, oh my God. And then so the narrative becomes these black men.
But you know what?
That doesn't become the narrative in the black community.
Right.
Very clear.
But see, I think that's what's got him timid, if you will, or certainly overly cautious. At some point, he has to use the old preacher's thing. You know what? I did this. I am not a perfect man, but I am a present servant. Divorces are hard. I'm just saying, you've got to confront these things. Divorces are hard. My wife and I had a really tough divorce. I loved her. I will always love her. She's the mother of my children. And I'm just sorry I'm sorry the path didn't run smooth, but we've worked a lot of things out. And I wish he could deal with that, because I think that has got him far more reserved, CK, that he ought to be. It's like, come on, what divorce do you know that's smooth? Are you kidding me?
And let me tell you what happened the first time, because see, she can say whatever she wants to say, and I take no position. I don't know what happened. It's not my business. Okay, so that's how I look at it. But it becomes my business as somebody who's voting, and it can become people's business. I have a view on it, which is because this is an old issue that's come up. And the first time it came up, when she was saying different things, there was a lot of pushback, because there were people, this is a small community in Atlanta. There were people in Atlanta that understood and knew what was going on. And those people pushed back, and it became a non-issue for Raphael Warnock, a non-issue. It is still a non-issue for Raphael Warnock, but it becomes something to talk about because of the allegations against Herschel Walker. That's the only reason. It's a non-issue in terms of Raphael Warnock has dealt with all the things you're saying, Santita, he said, and he might just have to replay that. But he did all that.
But my point is, he has to redo all of that, not in a vacuum, but in the context of this. And when I say in the context, I mean in Herschel Walker's face. You have to let these jokers know that I am not playing with you. I did not come to play. Don't play with me. How about that?
Yep. And I think, and for him, now is the time to do that.
Yeah.
He has it within him. I don't know. I don't think anybody's confused about that. Raphael Warnock has it within him.
I know he does. I'm just saying he's got to show it, CK. That's all.
No, I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you. But saying victory in the same sentence as Herschel Walker with that debate is, to me, I just can't even express what I'm thinking there.
I didn't say.
What do I feel at the end of the day? I do understand why people say that, but what do I feel at the end of the day? I feel at the end of the day, Raphael Warnock is going to be close, very close, disturbingly close.
Well, Robert, so what do you say?
Hello. Good morning.
Well, now, Dr. Starks, you know I never call you Robert. Are you kidding me? I'm like, do you think I've lost my mind? Oh, no.
Okay.
I'm not crazy. What Jackson child calls you, or progeny at this point, because we're all real old and grown.
He was just really excited.
I'm like, there's no way. I've known this man practically all of my life. I would never call him by his first name ever. And I know him and he knows me. I would never call him by his first name. I think the Lord would strike me down.
No.
Yeah.
We have 1 minute and 15.
Oh my goodness. Okay. But we've been talking about this race. And Robert Patillo and attorney C.K. Hoffler are down in Atlanta.
Oh.
So, exactly. They're like in the storm, and they're with Stacey and Stacey Abrams and Brian Kemp. So they are in the middle. They are in the eye of the storm, if you will.
I got you. Oh boy, I just wish and hope and pray that both Warnock and Adams can win. That would be a miracle. That would really.
Well, I'm just
really.
I just
30 seconds.
If we would get out and vote.
Yes.
Because the most likely voter, and I've dug this up and I'll give it to you, is still the white voter in America. Then the black voter, then the Hispanic voter. So everybody, call me at 773-763-9278. Let's talk about this campaign. We are 3 weeks out from the midterms. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, okay, stand by.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show, WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's Monday, October 17th, 2022. We're 3 weeks away from the midterms. Are you still registered to vote? Are you registered to vote? Do you plan to vote? What are the issues that will drive you to the polls? Will it be the economy? Senator Sanders is saying, Democrats, look at the economy. You've got to counter Republicans point by point on this economy. Are we doing that? What about LGBTQ plus issues? What about affirmative action? What about abortion? What's driving you to the polls? Democracy, is it? Well, let's talk about it. It's 773-763-9278. And we really have to find out what is happening. What did you see in the Warnock-Walker debate on Friday night? And what about the Warnock? Well, Herschel Walker wasn't there last night. But many people say that the debate, the performance that Senator Warnock delivered last night, which was out of sight, was the one they wished that they had seen on Friday night. But everything has context. He, on Friday night, was with Walker, and you don't know what lines he was trying not to cross. There's just a lot. And I just want to know what your thoughts are. 773-763-9278. Let's get to some of these headlines so we can get on to the show. In the NFL, the Vikings 24, the Dolphins 16. We are now moving toward the World Series. Who's going to be in it? We've got to get through the American and National League Championship Series. We will see. The Yankees 4, the Guardians 2. The Guardians and the Yankees will be facing off once again tonight. The Padres, won their series 3-1 over the Dodgers, 5-3 yesterday. October 18th, we have the NBA season starting. I love it. There is data that shows that the likeliest voter in 2022 will be the white voter. White voters are most likely to vote, with 72% say that they will be going to the polls. 57% of black voters say that they will be going to the polls. 49% of Hispanic voters, and 54% of voters from other racial and ethnic backgrounds. The likelihood that voters will go to the polls increases based on how much education they've received, with 75% of voters holding a postgraduate degree planning to vote versus 74% of those with a bachelor's degree and 62% of voters without a college degree. So this is from Morning Consult, their study. What do you think? Well, everybody needs to vote. So what do you think about that, everybody? A quarter of Americans are expecting to delay their retirement due to rising consumer costs, according to this new study from the American Advisors Group. Americans are really struggling. Therefore, Bernie Sanders is saying, look, everybody, Democrats, you have got to run a campaign in which you address the economy, which he feels they're not doing. Now, he is the U.S. Senate Budget Committee chair, and he said, I think that Democrats should contrast their views with the Republicans' positions. I believe, and most Democrats believe, that at a time when half our people are living paycheck to paycheck, we should raise the minimum wage to a living wage, and on he went. Do you think that the Democrats are giving the right message, everybody? 773-763-9278. Let us look at this debate where Herschel Walker allegedly softened his stance on abortion. Is it because of the stories that have come out about him? What do you think about the performance that was given? Because, you know, what do they call politics, Dr. Robert Starks? Showbiz for ugly people. That's what they say. That's what they, CK, Robert Patillo, that's what they say. They call it show business for ugly people. But now many of the politicians, in order to run, get plastic surgery so they can look younger or more beautiful. You can't make this stuff up. So everybody, I want you to call us at 773-763-9278. Look, I just pull all the little things that I've been hearing. 773-763-9278. Madam Board Operator, please reach out to Attorney Jones. He said he's trying to call in, and, you know, these things happen. We're missing each other in the air. But we've been talking with Attorney Robert Patillo and Attorney C.K. Hoffler, regulars on this show. Of course, they're on WAOK. She is on WAOK. She'll be there tomorrow at 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and she will be on Court TV throughout the week. She's a legal analyst there, and she's the chair of Rainbow Push as well. And, of course, we have got Attorney Robert Patillo, Southeastern Regional Director for Rainbow Push, brilliant radio host and lawyer. He is, of course, on WAOK every Sunday from 1 to 4 Eastern Standard Time. And we're joined by one of the nation's foremost, indeed one of the world's foremost political scientists and strategists, Dr. Robert Starks, brilliant educator, political consultant, activist, professor, Northeastern Illinois University Center for Inner City Studies. Indeed, we heard our own Cook County clerk, Karen Yarbrough, give him so much credit that he deserves for educating her. And he's educated generations of people, and we are all so grateful for all that he has given us down through the years. What do you make of this? Well, you know what? Let me come back to you, Dr. Starks. I would like to get a very quick recap of Attorney C.K. Hoffler's and Attorney Robert Patillo's thoughts about these debates. Attorney C.K. Hoffler, for the people who are just tuning in into this second hour, what did you see on Friday night? What did you see last night with that empty podium, that the debate that Herschel Walker didn't show up for? Maybe he ran out of gas. I don't know. But you tell me.
Well, Friday night was a very cautious, very strategic-minded Raphael Warnock, who was ready to debate, who did debate, who won the debate, but he did not sink down to Herschel Walker's level. What I saw from Herschel Walker was somebody who came for a street fight. So it wasn't that Raphael Warnock didn't deliver a street fight. He just took it on. He was on a different level. Mm-hmm. He understood, I believe, the Herschel Walker's proclivities. He was very sensitive to the notion of not being condescending to Herschel Walker. And with the very limited policy analysis experience and all that Herschel Walker has, it would be easy for someone to be condescending. But what he understood, Senator Warnock understood, is that would not be a good posture to take. So he was not as aggressive, perhaps, as people wanted him to be. But the subsequent debate, he was very aggressive, very eloquent, and he pivoted to a different format, which is what senators do, what politicians do. And I think that's what we saw.
Robert Patillo, your thoughts? Is Robert Patillo still there?
Sorry, yeah.
Okay.
I think for the debate on Friday, the kind of the feedback that I was getting to people, the bar was very high for Warnock, and the bar was very, very exceedingly low for Walker. As I said, as long as Walker didn't get up there and start drooling or fall off the stage, there's a portion of the electorate that wanted to declare him the winner. I think that Warnock was far better at the second debate because it's very difficult to have two different conversations based in two different realities. And this is much of the criticism we saw of Obama, for example, in 2008. This idea that he was too educated, too composed, too aloof when it came to these conversations versus Herschel Walker, who gives off this good old country boy just trying his best. There's a baby up in there too type of candidacy. So for these, they were campaigning to very different audiences. Raphael Warnock's campaign performance will do very well in the law firms of Buckhead and the halls of the Atlanta University Center at Emory. Walker's debate style does very well in the monster truck rallies of North Georgia or the rural communities of the farm belt in Central and South Georgia. So very different audiences, very different styles. And I think that Warnock, even though he had a great performance, it did not connect as well as Walker's performance connected with the audience he was attempting to connect to.
Dr. Robert Starks, what do you make of all of this? This is a very interesting time in which in which we find ourselves, in which in Georgia, in the heart of the South, we have two Black men vying for the U.S. Senate seat in Georgia, but they come from two very different traditions.
Absolutely. Well, having two very astute Georgians on the phone, my first question is, why have we not connected Stacey Abrams' campaign and push to Warnock? I mean, what is the relationship at this point between the two of them?
CK,
we have
Robert?
heard a lot about. We have not heard a lot about the Stacey Abrams campaign. It seems to me, from Chicago, looking at all of the debates, etc., we've focused more attention on the Warnock Walker campaign than our friend Stacey Abrams, who, if she had not had the kind of astute voter registration and turnout plans that she had in 2021, he would not have. I mean, in 2020, he would not have won that seat. So please give me some ideas on that.
Okay, CK, Robert.
I think they are connected. That's an excellent point, and I'm glad that you're raising it. They are connected. They're connected on so many levels, directly, indirectly, visibly, not visibly. Maybe what we're seeing is a lack of putting them together every single day. But they are connected, certainly in corporate media. They're connected certainly in the Black community on some level, and they're connected certainly in terms of the Democratic Party, and they are absolutely connected in terms of the Republican Party. We are just not seeing it highlighted and underscored. They're contemporaries. She was at Spelman when he was at Morehouse. So they are connected, and they ran the first time around in a very connected way. So they are connected. I believe that Stacey has benefited to some degree from, Stacey Abrams has benefited from Raphael Warnock's approach with Black men, because they are very, very closely linked. One of the demographics that she has worked on this time around has been cultivating in a more profound and deeper way the vote of Black men, because she did not get 12% of the vote the last time around of Black men. And had she even gotten 5% of the vote, she would be the governor. So, because there was a lot of voter fraud the last time around, a lot of voter suppression. But putting that aside, with the voter suppression, 5% of the vote from Black men, she would have won. So this time around, she's made a very, very intentional, deliberate appeal And it's working, and part of that is through Senator Raphael Warnock and his engine. So they are connected. It's not as pronounced probably to those outside of Georgia or those outside the Atlanta metropolitan area or those outside of the urban communities in Georgia and that's why, when in Chicago you're saying it's not really, but they really are inextricably linked. And their fate, and my impression, are inextricably linked.
Robert Patillo, your thoughts?
Well, I think a big reason that we pay attention to the Warnock race is the same reason we pay attention to the Fetterman race, or the same reason we pay attention to the Mark Kelly Blake Masterson race. It's more so their Republican opponent, more so than anything the Democrat is doing to get the attention. It's hard not to pay attention to the Walker Warnock race when Walker's running around here for new illegitimate child every couple of weeks. Children are dropping mixtapes and talking about him. These abortion allegations, all the lies. That's what's getting the attention, and I think that because of that, we're not really hopping into the hermeneutics of the campaign. So yes, they are absolutely connected. Now, are they strapped together at the hip the way that Warnock and Ossoff were, where we have people who thought that was one name? They actually thought that there was somebody named Warnock Ossoff running. That's how connected they were. No, they're not. Someone told me that, and I understood why. They thought that Warnock Ossoff was running. That's how closely they ran together in 2021. But no, they haven't been that connected to each other, but I think they've been very connected, particularly policy-wise. But when you have a wild card like Herschel Walker in the race, that's going to get all the attention, both on the progressive side, wanting to highlight it, and also on the Republican side, because that's their hand-picked MAGA candidate. Remember Brian Kemp, who's running against Stacey Abrams, he bucked the MAGA people. He bucked it, and he got primaried by Donald Trump because he would not get aligned with their way of thinking. So because of that, he's less of a right character as Herschel Walker is for mainstream media mockery.
We've got Attorney Daryl Jones with us today. Daryl, what are your thoughts? Because you and Attorney Robert Arnwine have been going through Georgia. What did you make of the debate on Friday night, and what do you make of the debate done in absentia last night, since Herschel Walker was not there?
Well, good morning, Santita. I think Friday night, the question really for the Walker campaign was, could they stop any bleeding that was there? Would they lose any support? And so I think that what Robert was laying out about, trying to keep his ceiling low, his expectations low, would work to his advantage. And I think that's, a large part of what they were able to accomplish. I think that, they were able to talk about, I'm just, a dumb country boy or a farmer, whatever the statement was that he used to try to keep the expectations of him to not be high, but to have the expectations of Warnock to remain very high. And I don't think that either candidate disappointed their base. I don't think anybody was moved from either column. And, and depending upon your, the candidate that you favor, for Walker, that would have been something that, that was a plus for him, was to not completely, to come apart and just lose any of his followers that are there. And for the second debate, one of the things that we always have to keep in mind is that the Republican strategy throughout this series of elections we're in now is don't debate at all. It's just stay away. And I think that's a part of what we saw from the Walker campaign with the second debate, was just to stay away, hoping that, the ability to try to pull his people together from his first debate would just now carry over, say, okay, I can deal with this. No real damage done at the first debate. Nothing that was unexpected came out. No major gaffes came out from Walker, so that he didn't lose any of his base. And both CK and Robert could speak best to this. In the state of Georgia, you're going to have to really work to have the Republicans move away from their candidate. They may be a bad dog, but they're their bad dog, and they're going to stick at their bad dog. And so I think that becomes a large part of the strategy now is why should they move away from that bad dog? And the other part of that is whether or not there's sufficient number of independents try to sway anything in Georgia in that election. And I don't know the answer to that question, but I do feel as though from the two debates that have gone on, the Anastasia and the Warnock Walker debate, that it's going to be just a ground game of fighting, and that's the reason we've got to be certain to get the voters out and get people registered and have access to the polls to get them there. And that's why Black Voters Matter and Georgia Coalition for the People's Agenda and RPC and TJC are all out there trying to do that. Santita.
Well, Dr. Bob Starks, you have CK. We needed Dr. Starks here. He and Reverend Dr. Frank Watkins worked hand in glove, joined at the hip, down through the years. Mm-hmm. And of course, we just think about Frank Watkins and all. I'm so glad I got a chance to introduce him over the past couple of years as one of the great unsung heroes of the civil rights movement. If you did not have Frank Watkins, you would not have had Harold Washington, you would not have had Jesse Jackson, you would have not had Jesse Jackson Jr., Barack Obama, and on and on. There's some people, and I will say this, there are some white people we never could have made it without. And it's important to say that because Frank Watkins was from people who embraced Donald Trump, and he turned his back on all of that to be with us for the past 50 plus years. And I'll always love Reverend Frank Watkins, but if you could advise, and I'm gonna be honest, if you could advise both candidates, if you could, because you've done presidential, senatorial, mayoral, debate prep, you've done it all. What would you tell Raphael Warnock to do? And oh boy, what would you tell Herschel Walker to do? Aside from stay home, don't come out, Herschel.
Well, I love what your previous callers have said, Robert and the others. Stick to what you've done. I think I did not see the second debate, but I saw the first one between Warnock and Walker, and I agree 100%. Both bases, the Warnock base and the Walker base, actually spoke to their supporters. It didn't. I don't think it changed any of the people in either one of those camps. The problem is how do we get to those rural voters, particularly those African American voters outside of metropolitan Atlanta? Now we know the African American community outside of Atlanta, inside metropolitan Atlanta, are going to support both Stacey and Warnock. But what about those African Americans in those rural areas and in those small towns outside of metropolitan Atlanta?
Well, when we come back, I'll be just CK. I've got about 30 seconds. What about, going, the rural voters, the people who are catching the devil trying to vote even more so than those of you who are in the urban world?
Santita, what has to happen is what is happening. Mm-hmm. The outreach by civil rights, by grassroots organizations going into those rural communities, much like they did for the presidential elections, but doubling that effort, if we can even imagine it being possible. That's what's happening now. That's what's happening now, because there's recognition that without an outreach to them and without their vote, Raphael Warnock may not win.
Precisely.
There's recognition of that, and there's always been recognition of that. So going into those communities, you have to realize in those areas there's some people who do not have access to the internet. So they can't check their voting status because they don't have access to the internet. Forget high-speed internet, just the internet. So those organizations go and help people to register to vote. That's why it's important to support them, like Rainbow Push, like Transformative Justice Coalition, like Black Voters Matter Fund, like the People's Agenda. All of those organizations are there. And the election protection effort that Barbara Armline started, by the way, when she was at the Lawyers Committee of Civil Rights, the election protection efforts, making sure that there are enough lawyers at the polls to protect those voters. That's what it's going
Precisely. And we should, as people outside of Georgia, we should donate money to the Warnock and the Stacey Abrams campaigns because they need money. The Democratic Party has not given them the amount of money that they need. Are Georgians, black Georgians, upset about the fact that the Democratic Party has not donated money, enough money to those two campaigns?
Well, and to Sherry Beasley in North Carolina, she just made some noise about that. Let's talk about this. Coming up, we've got Latasha Brown. We've got a full house as we talk about this vote. Call us at 773-763-9278. Back in just a minute. Okay, I'm sorry, CK, go on. I apologize. When I hear, I was up against the clock.
No, we are upset. We are upset that the Democratic Party hasn't poured into these campaigns on the level that they need to make sure that they win. And Georgia will make the difference without a question. So they should.
Without a question.
And so what's happening is we are taking it into our own hands. Mm-hmm. So we're not letting these failures, these disappointments, whether it's the Democratic Party or others, define what's going to happen in Georgia. I mean, there's so many groups, so many organizations. Raphael Warnock has raised record numbers of money. Raphael, not the Democrat. Raphael Warnock, Senator Warnock. And that is because people said, oh, absolutely not. We're not going to allow the party or anyone to determine our fate here in Georgia. But it is a fight. It is a fight. You hear me? It's a fight. Mm-hmm. And going into those rural communities, actually, even in the Atlanta metropolitan area, we can't take that for granted either. Because people are, feeling some kind of way. And they might be feeling some kind of way about the Democratic Party. They might be feeling because they feel maybe that they haven't delivered for black folks. So when people feel some kind of way about that, they look at the candidate for the party and sometimes they take it out on that candidate. So as people are feeling some kind of way, even in the urban areas, countering that is critically important. Whereas the Republican Party is unified no matter what. The person was a serial killer, well, it just was a serial killer, whatever. That is the way that they approach politics. We don't approach politics that way as Democrats. So I think the fight is ever going and has to be aggressive.
I agree 100%. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So you need money not only for the campaigns, but you also need money for the workers who are going door to door, registering people, and performing the get out the vote.
It costs so much money.
My issue was, that's always been my issue with campaigns in Georgia. I remember the Roy Barnes race in 2010, pouring so much money into TV ads, you forget the fund field operations. You need somebody down in Montezuma, Georgia, who's willing to knock door to door. You need people out there in Oglethorpe and in Houston County who are willing to walk around in November, dragging folks to the polls. And that's not going to get done by TV ad buys from your DC-based strategists. That's going to happen down in those individualized communities with little old black ladies who go to county Democratic Party meetings who need some funds. Mm-hmm. And we don't get that money down there because we spend it all on these consultants who come in from out of state.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. Now, you see, the whole issue of running for office has changed over the years. Now, young political science people believe that TV is the only, and mass, media.
We have 1 minute.
Sure, you need TV, you need mass media, but you have to have people on the ground working door to door in order to get people out to vote. And that, of course, was one of the major points of Reverend Jesse Jackson push in 1984 and 88, and he still pushes that issue that you cannot sit around and allow TV
30 seconds
or mass media. You have to have social media even. You cannot do that. You have to have those people going door to door, and you have to give them the money in order to do it. You can't totally rely on volunteers to do all of that.
It doesn't work
Those
that
are
way.
lessons. It doesn't work that way. Absolutely.
Just doesn't work that way.
Stand by. Stand by.
Stand by. We're coming up.
Yeah. As a Democratic voter, I am really
We
upset.
can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am breathing.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. Having an interesting conversation about the Warnock-Walker debate and really where American politics, where it's going to go. I mean, because that really is a really, really big deal. Joining you at Reverend Dr. Bob, Reverend, wow, but you do have a ministerial zeal. I have that in my defense. And of course, we have got Dr. Bob Starks, preeminent political scientist, and attorney C.K. Hoffler, chair of Rainbow Push, legal analyst on Court TV, Robert Patillo, attorney Robert Patillo, who is, they both host on WAOK. He on Sunday from 1 to 4 Eastern Standard Time, she on Tuesdays from at 11 o'clock. Eastern Standard Time. And then, of course, on WOL, you have attorney Barbara Arnwine and attorney Daryl Jones at 12 noon on their own show. So joining us is someone else who is down there in the trenches in Georgia, Black Voters Matter founder and singer extraordinaire, Latasha Brown. Latasha Brown, how you doing?
Good morning. How you doing, Santita?
Girl, look. You need to let us know what your thoughts are, because we've been taking this debate apart. We're trying to see what did I see? What do we need to see? What needs to happen next? First of all, what did you see on Friday night?
What we saw on Friday night is the Republicans, no, they did not have we saw one candidate who literally the expectations were so low that as long as he can complete a sentence, the Republicans run away and say, "Oh yeah, he did a great job." The bottom line, it was a tragedy. What we saw. That here we're seeing these two black men. We're seeing one black man that is being used a puppet by the Republican Party, who not only flashed his Paw Patrol badge, but in addition to that, literally only had one mission, and that is to say the attack on Biden. That over and over again, that's what it seems like he had been trained to do. We saw Warnock, who I believe is a serious candidate, that wanted to have a serious debate, and I'm quite sure he was very disappointed that it wasn't my expectation that would happen, but I could tell that I think there was some sense of disappointment around that. The good news is today is the first day of early voting, and so we are out here in these streets, and polls don't decide decide elections. People do.
I love it. So are people energized now from what you're seeing?
Energized is not the word. I do think that people are resolved. I think that whatever people have made, they've already made their decision. Now it's really a turnout game. This isn't one of those elections that is like a high impact, even though the stakes are high, that is terribly exciting in that kind of way. Part of it, I do think that there's a little fatigue, that people are really concerned about so many issues. But I will say the difference in this election that I see in other elections, there's an awareness. There's a political awareness a little bit differently than I've seen in previous elections. So the name recognition game, people know that there's a Herschel Walker and a Warnock running, and there's a Brian Kemp and a Stacey Abrams running, right? Secondly, the thing that gives me hope is that many of the grassroots groups that were working in 2020, those groups are still working. Now, be it that they're working with far less resources, my brother Patillo was saying earlier, but I do think that the work has continued, and we've been base building. So this is one of those issues that I think is slow and steady wins the race.
Yeah, but why do you have fewer resources this time around? It seems to me there's even more at stake, Latasha Brown.
I think that's a great question, but I also think that's part of the consultant class. Part of what winds up happening in these big elections, these white consultants will come and connect with these candidates and are assigned to work with these candidates, and they drive the candidates to put all their investment dollars into television. When the fact of the matter is, many of us are watching Netflix and are watching cable TV, right? That is not how you're going to get the voters or persuade voters who don't know if they're going to vote or not, right? So I think but there's an economic and financial benefit for them. So I think ultimately what is happening is sometimes bad habits are hard to break. I think that this the consulting class, and I think about both parties, have literally continued to stand with this strategy because I think it's in their personal.
Well, what about this consulting class? Because look, the consultants, they're great. They don't get that kind of work done, Latasha. I mean, and that is something that Robert Patillo, I'm going to come back to you and to CK and to, please talk about people out in the streets. The Transformative Justice Coalition, people are out here. Robert Starks, this better than anyone. That was part of the big fight. Many people don't know because they romanticize the 50s and the 60s of the civil rights movement. There was real tension between Dr. King, the NAACP, Thurgood Marshall. They did not like him.
Absolutely.
They didn't like him.
Exactly.
Now, was that public knowledge? Not really. No. Dr. King was he spoke at the end, Latasha, of the March on Washington. They didn't want him to speak. That's why he brought Mahalia Jackson with him. She was the icon then. And she said, go on, Martin, tell him about the dream, because she had been with him in Detroit. They felt that he was too street focused. He was too much of a street activist. And you're a Morehouse man, PhD. What are you doing? You're out here with the great unwashed. Dr. Starks, I'm telling the truth.
Yeah, absolutely. And your speaker is so correct. Why do we go to New York, Philadelphia, and bring in white consultants to Georgia?
Or black ones who are disconnected, Dr. Starks. There's some black folks who disconnected.
I agree, but why? I mean, don't you have good, strong, documented consultants in Georgia? I mean, why would you go outside of Georgia and get, or even in Chicago? And many of the campaigns that run in Chicago, they go outside of Illinois and
I don't understand that.
White consultants. I don't understand that.
Latasha,
I really don't.
Latasha's a Harvard fellow. I mean, if you want those credentials, she got that too. All right. So Latasha, I don't know why people are going over you while you sitting up here in the woods getting these people.
Please explain
it. And Robert and everybody else explain it. Starting with you, Latasha.
So let me say this. Part of the reason I want people to understand the reason why we started, Cliff Albright and I started Black Voters Matter. We literally started Black Voters Matter to address this problem that we were seeing over and over again. That part of what has happened is there's been a lack of consistent investment in the building of Black power in this country, in this community. In addition to that oftentimes when you see Black candidates that are leading the ticket, what you've seen is you've not seen the same kind of investment over the years in those states or in those races or in those campaigns, which makes it much more difficult for us to be competitive. The second thing is that we saw over and over again was that there was always this message. There's always a poll to say what Black folk ain't gonna do, or there's gonna be low turnout, or we don't like this candidate. There's always this negative kind of edge to when we're seeking to be a power political office. And then the third thing, there's always a very disjointed process. That normally what winds up happening is that in the elections, it's very cyclical. It's like 3 weeks out before the election, then people are talking about the election, and then throughout the rest of the year, nobody is doing the work or talking about, or very few people who are resourced. Let me say that people are always doing the work, but they're usually very, very, they have very, very little resources to no resources. What we wanted to do is to disrupt all of that. And so when we talk about our work, the reason why we created Black Voters Matter was for 3 reasons. I call it the 3M strategy. We were very clear. We were going to move money, build movement, and shift the message. Movement, money, and so part of what we've done in the last 5 years, we have moved $27 million to Black-led grassroots groups. That means we wrote checks. We raised the money and gave out the money, not to a Black Voters Matter chapter, because we don't have Black Voters Matter chapters. We're not empire building. We feel like we've got to build out the infrastructure that already exists in our communities. We know the people who respond when things go down in our communities. We know the organizations that when somebody's house burns down, that we actually have to, they can rally the community around support. And so over the last 5 years, that's what we've done. We've moved money, $27 million to Black-led grassroots groups. The second thing that we've done is we've built movement. What does that mean? In all 13 states we work in, we have at least from 25 to over 85 partners. That means grassroots groups that we're constantly working with, that we're sharing strategy, that we're building out the ecosystem. There are groups that do everything from the local NAACP chapter to a group that's doing abolitionist work, to a group that's doing social service work, that we pull ourselves together in our best thinking and figure out how we can coordinate, how we can actually focus on those things that are building Black power. And we do that 365 days out of the year, whether it's an election or not. And the third and the final thing that I'll say is around message. We have to shift this message that literally makes us run away from being Black, that makes us feel like we're less than, that makes us feel like we're just an auxiliary in somebody else's game, which is why we literally lead with the thing around it is about us. It ain't about the Republican Party having power or the Democratic Party having about power. It is about us. And we align our votes with those folks that actually literally are in our best interest. And this campaign that we just launched is called the We Want Black Down campaign. And you heard me right. I didn't say back down. I said black down. That we are leaning into the strong, rich history of Black resistance and Black resilience and Black organizing. And so in a moment that we're seeing white nationalists and white supremacists and a racialization of these political campaigns, we're not running from who we are. We're leaning into who we are because we believe that's the very thing that's going to transform this nation.
Natasha, you are right on the money. The one thing that really irks me is the fact that in many cases we wait until 2 or 3 weeks before the damn campaign, the election comes out, to start trying to mobilize people and get them working in the campaign. You are right. And I've watched your progress. You start, like you said, you do 365 days a year, every year, instead of waiting until 6 months before the election to start getting people into the campaigns. That's great. I really appreciate that for you, because Santita, I believe that the Georgia campaign this year and the one in 2020 will be an example for African Americans, and we are blessed to have the active work that's going on in Georgia, because it will set a model for the rest of us throughout this country.
Robert Patillo, Latasha sounding like you.
Well, truth will find its way regardless. And I think both me and Latasha, having worked those fields when it comes to Georgia politics, going to all 159 counties, sitting in little diners, knocking on doors and trailer parks, XYZ, you understand the reality of the state of Georgia. I think a lot of people now, they get this impression of Atlanta being in the state of Georgia. Atlanta is a whole separate island off the coast of Georgia. The rest of the state, Atlanta is a colony of Georgia. The rest of Georgia is a completely different place, a completely different apparatus. And if you don't understand that about Georgia politics and how the campaign there, you're going to end up with the results that you often see, where, as we said, you have a state that is majority minority, 35% Black, 20% Latino, 15% Asian, 52% women, but yet you have a constitutional majority for Republicans across the board. A good chunk of that is voter suppression laws, but another chunk of that is a Democratic Party that does not really know how to campaign to the Black folks there and to the minority people there. They often bring in talking points, bring in consultants that don't know how to talk to the people. Now, there's plenty of time between now and election day to make up any gaps. But a big portion of it is going to have to be pouring that money right now. People have now been TV commercialed and radio commercialed and flyer and mailered to death to the point that you do not hear it anymore. It is just a background noise. Any more money that you're paying, spending on paid advertising is a waste right now because people have filtered it out because you just hear it too much back to back to back to back commercials. People have them memorized. What you need to be investing in now is making sure that those people who are able to knock on doors, those street teams who are able to campaign for you on Halloween night in the suburbs, to make sure you have those buses that can get from the churches to early voting locations so you're not waiting until election day around the state, to make sure you're having those voter protection lawyers on standby so that when an issue happens, we can get lawsuits filed. That is where the money has to get to. And for some reason, and I've been in Georgia politics for over 20 years, that money always gets to the consultants and the ad buyers at the top. It does not filter down, and they expect us to do sharecropping when it comes to politics. Don't you want to get out there and do this? They got us sharecropping. Meanwhile, they're riding around in private jets, and that's where you end up with these divergent results of what the demographics indicate. And I'm hoping it changes this time.
I'm hoping so. I mean, what are you? I'm hoping so. I mean, Daryl, what are you seeing out there?
Well, Santita, it's hard to follow Latasha, but I mean, she's 100%, and Robert, they're 100% on point.
No. Wait, you are out here. Wait. You were down. You and Barbara are online. Now, let me give you your propers. You were down there with Ahmaud Arbery and his family when no one knew his name, and you all do that routinely, whether you have a crowd or not. You sit in those courtrooms, you help people file the briefs, you work with these families. This is what you've been doing. And you're trying to raise money every day to make this happen. The money is out here. I'm just like, when is it going to get to the folks who are doing this kind of work? Now you go on, Robert. I mean, Daryl, because that's just what I see.
No,
because every time I call you, every time I talk to you, you can't get a signal. That's how far out he is.
And you're 100% on point. And let me tell you about the Arbery family. Marcus Arbery, the father of Ahmaud Arbery, is with us now as we travel on this voter arc of justice, trying to get people to register and to be active in voting. We're going to be in Brunswick, Georgia, and in Savannah, Georgia, at the end of this week. And Black Voters Matters and Cliff Albright, they're going to be right there with us. So, we are out there. We're in the streets. We're pushing for people to get out to vote. We're encouraging people, imploring people to go to vote.org right now and check on your voting status to be certain that you haven't been purged or removed from the voting rolls, and urging people to early vote right now. And I tell you, we're just leaving Richmond, Virginia. We're headed to Raleigh, North Carolina today. And, the message is the same. The feelings that we're getting from the communities that we're going through is the same. And that is that people just want to be encouraged to come out and vote, and to let them know that, voting is important, to have that conversation. That's what needs to happen. And regardless of where you stand ideologically, we've got to be certain that our African-American community, our brown and Black community get out to vote, because we believe that when our people go to the polls to vote, they will vote in a way that's in the best interest of the community, and that's how we'll move this country forward. The fight that's going on right now is the fight to get over the hurdles that have been put in place from Georgia Senate Bill 202 and other Senate bills from around the country to try to make it more difficult for Black people and young people and brown people to be able to vote. That's the battle that we're in, and that's what we need to overcome, and that's what we've got to do in this election, Santita.
C.K. Hoffler, before we go, and before you have to go, because I don't know how she does it. She's on court TV. She's opening up she's adding to her law practice. She's the chair of Rainbow Push. Oh, I don't know how you do it. I mean, what's the path forward as far as you see?
Well, first of all, the path forward is to support Rainbow Push, Transformative Justice Coalition, Black Voters Matter Fund. I mean, Lord have mercy, I've had the pleasure of representing all three of them in voting rights litigation. They are doing it in the field, and everybody has a role. Everyone has a role. Most importantly, voting. But secondly, with these organizations that are in the field, supporting them with contributions, no matter how small or how large, supporting them because they are the ones making a difference, especially in places like Georgia, especially. And I applaud all three I wanted to drop the mic when Natasha spoke, when Robert spoke, and when Daryl spoke, because I drop the mic every time they speak because they speak truth to power. So that's what I see going forward. Forget about the Herschel Walker to the Walker, the Herschel to the Walker. Don't be excited that he just met the minimum. Since when has it been acceptable for Black people to meet the minimum? His second and birds will never agree, and he doesn't know they need to agree, and he never knows that. So let's get past that and get out and make sure that people vote. And when there's a need for legal challenges, those election protection lawyers like me, those are lawyers who are out there who are prepared to file suit, we must give them the ammunition to file. And that's why Greg Callis, vigilante, is so important because people need to be informed. They need to be informed. And I agree. All these commercials, there's so many commercials, but social media is the way that the young folks stay informed. And the grassroots organizations, we have to remember, when we're going in rural areas, they don't have the internet sometimes. So we need these organizations to go out and help people register to vote. But let's not get confused again. I hate to come back to that Herschel Walker. Just don't get confused. We don't need to get confused.
No,
He's
I
not
hear
the
you.
answer. He's never going to be the answer. He wasn't the answer. But I will give him this, and I expected this. He knows how to do a little street fighting. I mean, come on now. So that's what he did. But he didn't, I don't even think he met the minimum.
CK.
But when you expect zero
Shame
from
on
someone and they
CK.
deliver one, then I know. But when we're not going to be talking honestly. I mean, when you expect zero from someone and they deliver a 1 out of 100, then it's a victory. And the reason why he's not going to debate anymore is because they said, let's leave well enough alone. He delivered the minimum. Let's just leave it alone and not take any more chances because we don't know what he's going to say.
It's called WHEW. Phew, Lord, we got through Friday night. Now we're done. You can't say we didn't debate you. Dr. Starks, give us some historical perspective. I've got a couple minutes before we go. Give us an historical frame for this, because this is, whew. I don't know if we've seen this.
We haven't seen this, and first of all, I want to say thank God for the activists, the workers, the street fighters in Georgia, and Georgia, the Georgia fight will become a model for the rest of Black America. But historically, all of this real down-to-earth kind of fight started in 1984 when Reverend Jackson began to run for president of the United States. And the model, the Jackson model, is one that we have to keep in front of us at all times, i.e., voter registration, not 6 months before the election, but almost year-round. Because remember, in 84, Reverend Jackson went all over the country registering people. We estimate that he registered some 6 million people over the time that he started his national voter registration campaign. I never will forget some of the men on NBC said that Reverend Jackson took voter registration as a campaign to, change America, and they were absolutely correct. And that model is really working hard across the country. The thing that really, really hurts me is the fact that many African American elected officials are not pushing hard and loud for the voter registration and the voter anti-voter suppression bills that we need, like the John Lewis bill that's sitting on the desk of the president. The president of the United States, who is a Democrat, should make that bill a priority.
Hold that thought. But no, stay right there. Latasha, I got 1 minute. Take it.
Okay.
Is Latasha still there? Well, no, but okay. Well, voting is key. He's not making it a priority. How can we press him to make it a priority?
Be a priority.
30 seconds. How can we press him to make it a priority?
By demonstrating, by having all of our Black elected officials in the Congress stand up demand that they stand up and push this issue, as opposed to just sitting back and saying, well, he'll do it later, he'll do it now. It's got to be a priority. And every African American in this country has got to push for it, period.
Well, voting is key, everybody. That's why we're talking about this. Because, I tell you what's happening in Georgia has national applications. Voter suppression laws are going into effect in Maine, in Mississippi, and every place in between.
Well, thank God for the African American fighters in Georgia. And you're absolutely right. It will become a model for the rest of African Americans throughout this country.
And what's good for African Americans is good for everybody in America. I can't wait to be with you tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show, everybody. Love you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have anyone with me still, Madam Board Operator?
You have.
I've got a 9 o'clock.
Okay.
Great show.
CK, you want to say something to the audience before you go?
Yeah, just reiterating. Vote. What happens in Georgia is happening everywhere in the country, just like you said, Santita. And I just don't want us to get confused when we see candidates like Herschel Walker. We've never been minimalist. I know you said, Santita, qualifications out the door, but we never, as a voting bloc of the community, have looked at minimal, unqualified, can't make it, represent us well candidates.
Well, no. Let me say this. Do you know what I was saying? What I was saying was the perceptions. They have let you know, they have given lie to all of these barriers that they put in front of us. In order for us to be, we have to be superior in order to be equal. Because clearly that's not the issue with them. That's what these people, the admissions committee, told my mother about me with Harvard. They said, "Oh no, she's qualified to be here, but it's her politics. It's your politics and your husband's politics, Mrs. Jackson, that we don't like." Dr. Allen Counter, God rest his soul, he said we had to fight to get it through committee. My mother was outraged, and you were on staff then, Dr. Starks. My mother was outraged. She said, "Wait a minute, you called us. You called her." It is almost never about your qualifications. That's my point. And I'm saying, and I was overqualified so that if anyone questioned my credentials, they couldn't do that. But my point is, I think we need to see through the game here. That's all I'm trying to say. I just want us to see through the game that they're playing with us.
Yeah. And please remember that Herschel Walker is a tool, period.
Yeah.
A tool.
I hate to even be like Lurch. I mean, like Lurch again. But yes, we live to fight another day because the struggle continues, Santita. It continues. All right, I got to run, but thank you.
And thank you for the invitation. I saw it early this morning. CK.
Okay. No worries.
Thank you.
I'm doing next time, but everybody, Dr. Starks, does anyone, Robert, Daryl, if you're still there, does anyone want to say anything to the Facebook Live audience before we go? Aside from vote.
I'll close with this thing. Yeah, absolutely. And go to vote.org. Please go check your status and be certain that you're still on the rolls to vote. Thanks, Santita.
Well, I'd like to say send money to the Warnock and Stacey Abrams campaign in Georgia.
Well, there's
all
that.
Around the country. Send money to those campaigns.
There's that. Do that right now. Do that. And these other campaigns. Charles Booker. It's like we're not even looking at his campaign. And this guy went from 5% name recognition to almost getting the nomination, but for Chuck Schumer stepping in and supporting the establishment candidate in 2018. See, because I don't understand how it is that we don't support these insurgents who have so much promise. And if they got support from the establishment Democratic Party, whether it's celebrity support, Daryl and Robert and Dr. Starks, there is a machinery that they can put behind you to make you a superstar. And they refuse to do that with these progressive candidates. And I'm saying it's not just the black
Dr.
ones.
Starks is on.
Well, Dr. Starks, it's not just the black ones. It is a Dennis Kucinich who they seek to bury. It's a Bernie Sanders they seek to bury. The people who are not corporatist, they seek to, Jesse Jackson, they seek to bury you.
Yes.
And they're the ones with the energy. Because that's where the problems are.
That's right. Well, I've got to go, unfortunately.
No. But you know, I had to call you.
Thank you.
You'll be getting another
Thank
call
you.
probably
Thank
later
you.
on tonight because we have. No. But I will say this, everyone. This is one of the most brilliant political scientists, one of the most brilliant political minds alive today. That's the truth. And he has the history. And so I think it's important for us to always have a history, to contextualize everything that we're dealing with, because this is, there's a lot going on here. And you need to understand what's past is prologue. None of this is new. And when you know the history, as Dr. Starks does, you can see the historical trend. So he's going to tell you, when he tells you to contribute money, he knows what he's talking about. When he talks to you about voting, he's creating a voter registration, a voting manifesto that he and Dr. Watkins worked on, Reverend Watkins worked on for years.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
This is, if the vote was not important, were it not so important, there would not be such a fight to keep it from you. I realize you've been disappointed in politics and by politicians. I get it. I understand it. I hear you. I feel you. Me too. That having been said, as Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman said, it works when you work it. This system works when you work it. You got to vote.
Right.
Who else would have one precinct open for 660,000 voters as they did when Charles Booker was running in 2018? Who does that? And what bothers me is that the Democratic Party didn't raise Cain about it because it didn't bother them.
No,
because both of these parties are corporatist and they don't favor you and me. But you know what? Since the horse I'm riding on is Democratic at this time, I'm gonna make them do what I need them to do. If you need my vote, you come to my church tapping your foot, and that bothers me. Then you're gonna give me not what I want, but what I need, what I elected you for. And I'm gonna be a burr in your side until you come through for me, because that's what politics is. It's quid pro quo. You do for me, I do for you. Boom. That's it. This ain't no love game here.
Dr. Starks dropped.
So you all need to stop playing that game. Stop it. Don't let people play with you, and don't get played. Don't let them play with you, and do not get played. Even if you don't get who you want, make sure you get what you need, because whether a president or a vice president or anyone on the federal, state, or local level, whether you voted for them or not, they represent you, and you need to make sure that they come through for you. I don't care who is in office. But I tell you what, if you give someone your support, you better make them come through for you. Don't you let them play with you. Don't let them play with you. Don't let them do it. So, you know, I have my rants, but I love you all so much. Love you. I love you, Matt. Thank you, my dear Matt. So I'm sending everybody much love today. Thank you, Madam. Okay. I'm trying to look at these. Madam Board Operator, I'm glad that you're back today. And everybody have a good one. I'll see you tomorrow. Got a lot to talk about because these races are coming in fast and furious. I cannot wait to see where all of this is going to go. So I'm sending you all much love today, and I will be with you, God willing, tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show.